Hi, my name's Tony Sharples and welcome to Old Dog New Tricks. Now it's the end of week 3 of the build of the site and starting to populate it with content. So I thought I would take my weekly look back at what's been hard and what's been easy. So I think the interesting thing for this week is that if you had asked me last week what I thought I would be doing this week, I thought that I would be signing up to Google AdWords, signing up to Facebook, working out the advertising back ends and testing and gathering content for things like that. In fact, it's turned out to be very different to that because as I was moving forward during the week, I really started to think about how I needed to sort of structure and organize the content on the site. And I think this is a really good learning for people setting out, is that you have to regularly sort of reach points where you say, okay, what do I imagine this thing is going to look like 12 months from now? And get a vision in your mind of what content's going to be there, what messages you're getting out, what elements you're going to have built into whatever you have online, whether that's an online shopping thing or some sort of sales tool that you're developing, or just a site to build a services type of brand. So I put a lot of thought into this week. So for example, for me, I'm really covering 3 main areas of content. I'm covering digital for the workplace, I'm covering digital for people who are looking to boost an existing business, and people who are also looking at retirement planning. I've got a little subsection there which is just learning on content development, but really on those 3 core ideas, that's what I want to build out. And I think as I looked at the result of last week and trying to imagine what's this going to look like in a year's time, what really came out of that is that if I didn't do some thinking on structure and design, then potentially what I would end up with in 12 months' time is a bit of a dog's breakfast of ideas, as they say in Australia. So I spent a lot of time this week doing things like color coding, different sections, color coding posts, starting to work out a look and a feel so that if you come into Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever, or even to the site, there's a color coding system now that very clearly spells out, okay, if you're interested in retirement planning, these are the stories for you. If you're interested in digital in the workplace, these are the stories for you. So I've spent a lot of time developing a color coding system for that, and really starting to post and actually go back and repost some stuff to match that color coding system, just to make it much clearer 12 months down the track in terms of when there's a lot more content on the site and spread through the different platforms, that it's much easier to navigate your way around and find the content that's relevant to what you're looking for. I think the other thing that I've spent a lot of time on this week has been thinking about best fit for content. So obviously YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, they're all very different beasts when it comes to the types of content that are best suited and the types of content that work on those platforms. So I think YouTube has been fairly straightforward because it's video, there aren't too many restrictions on length and all those sorts of things, so it's a fairly straightforward path to go down. I must admit, in retrospect as well, and it's a point I've made in the last few videos, I have really been forcing myself to not rehearse too much, not to have notes, and really focus on just talking to camera and working it through from there. And I am finding that it is becoming an easier thing to do as time goes by. And it's only really been a week where I've really been pushing myself to talk to camera and not try and be too scripted and everything. And I'm pretty happy with how that's coming out. Looking at the other platforms, I'm trying to develop ideas for content streams that I can use that fit the different platforms. So for example, for Instagram, where you're a bit locked into a square, more static visual sort of platform, I've come up with an idea for these business hacks, which are just short, practical advice on things that can help a person working in business. I am going to do a bit of experimentation over the next 2 weeks on IGTV on Instagram, where basically you can use the vertical format to do, I think it's 15-second through to 10-minute videos. So I'm going to try some short form video on Instagram to see how that works. On Twitter, I've just been posting. I have been testing something on Twitter because I want to try and work out some strategies to try and build Twitter following. So one of the things I'd done originally, which was suggested by a lot of sites that I'd looked at that had talked about how to grow Twitter followers, was the advice of look at what competitors are doing and look at what the big companies out there are doing and follow those companies so you're getting a stream of activity back. One thing I'm trying, I went to the State of Origin football game in Sydney this week, and I was looking there at testing how you could use Twitter to perhaps ride off the back of a big event where there are lots of people sending out tweets and all of that sort of stuff. I gave that a bit of a go during the match, but I think I really need to put more thought into that. I actually think there could be some mileage to be gained by looking at events and trying to push much more topical things out there to get a message out to a much wider audience. But I think you really need to plan that a bit. So I'm going to be thinking about that a bit over the next few weeks. LinkedIn has been a tricky one. LinkedIn, I am working LinkedIn so that I am posting directly from my posts that I put into the main website. It directly posts out to my LinkedIn company page. There are some problems with that, and it's just to do with the way that LinkedIn's structured between your personal profile and a company page that you set up, in that it's not really sending images across when I do a post. I just get basically a text thing with a link, which looks pretty boring. And also LinkedIn company pages, it seems, won't let you go back in like with other platforms and edit a post. So I can't really go back into LinkedIn and add pictures later on. So that's something that I'm going to look at in the weeks ahead to try and come up with a workaround for that. And I'll have to do a bit of research online to see how people have got around that problem, because I want to avoid a scenario where I'm having to go and do lots of individual postings on lots of individual platforms. And look, I think it raises a bigger thing down the track as well, and it's something you need to think about. And it's also the reason that I really haven't done anything on Snapchat yet, is the age-old advice is that you shouldn't try to be everywhere on everything. So I think one of the learnings for me in the weeks and months ahead is going to be to define down for me which platforms work for my type of business. And I think you will find the same whether you're doing online retailing or a services business or any type of business. Really hone down in terms of what platforms work best for you, and then focus on those platforms. But right now I'm forcing myself to go out and use just about everything out there, because that is part of the whole learning exercise. Okay, so to summarize the past week, I think one of the key learnings for me is you need to start to think at the outset, either during the planning phase, but look, I think you're going to find that developing a digital brand entity online is going to be a moving feast. It's not going to be like setting up a production line, pushing a button, and goods start rolling off the end of the production line and you start selling them. There are going to be tweaks and changes and shifts in terms of what you thought you'd be doing versus what you end up doing. So very much this week I've taken a step back and I'm looking at what will this thing look like in 12 months and trying to make it a bit more organized and a bit more relevant to people that are coming in and looking at stuff. The other thing from my perspective is, and I come back to something that has really stuck out to me from a lot of the podcasts that I've listened to that Gary Vaynerchuk does, is I'm really not pushing for revenue right now. Because the reality is give to the world and the world will give back to you. I'm not pushing any sort of revenue aspect to this right now. I see this very much as being a long tail game where this will be a long-term business proposition, not something where you're just going to go whiz-bang overnight. Now, that may be very different for you, depending on the nature of online business that you're looking to set up. But for me, I'm looking more at the long-term thing. I think the other thing I've found as well, and it's probably an important thing to keep on board as you move forward yourself, is that you don't want to come on too heavy and too strong straight away to anyone that expresses interest in what you're doing. I mean, it's a bit like the car salesman analogy. The last thing you want is the guy that scoots across the floor immediately as soon as you arrive in the car showroom and starts doing the hard sell on you. And I've had that on a few fronts where I have followed something or I've subscribed to something and I've just been deluged with stuff. You know, sign up for this, follow me for that, I'm doing a live thing for this. And I just think with those, it's actually a big turn off. Interestingly, Facebook advertising has been a bit of a case there. I've just been bombarded with stuff and I'm just going, you know, okay, I don't want to move that fast. I don't want to go and be frantic on Facebook advertising, but I'm literally getting a barrage of stuff all of the time on you know, promote that post. So I'm really kicking back on the revenue thing now. To me, it's more important to get it set up in a structured way. And look, honestly, the revenue implications of this will sort themselves out and become apparent in the long term. And there may be ways of monetizing this that I haven't even thought of yet. So very much my approach is get in there, set it up with a vision moving forward, and then work out down the track how those bits will spin out of it. So that sort of sums up the past week. It's been interesting. I'm off to Hong Kong next week and I will be doing some video content from there, talking about doing business in China, filming while you're traveling, based on the fact I've just filmed in so many countries, and I want to start to use the fact that I'm traveling in a country with limited kit, with foreign language and all of that sort of stuff, to give some advice back on that. And yeah, so hopefully you'll find that interesting. I will see you next time.